There are still some chairs here up front as well if you want to sit down. Usually a lot of people join us after we start, so if you want to sit down, there is still plenty of chairs up here. Can you hear me in the back, Steve?
Pretty good, man.
Pretty good? Welcome, welcome everybody. I'm very happy and very thankful that you take an hour out of your busy schedule today to join us and to meet the Lepples family here in this room as part of the World Dairy Expo virtual farm tours. This is our fourth one. We did virtual farm tours over the past 4 World Dairy Expos with farms out of Indiana, out of Minnesota, and out of Iowa last year. And we thought, why are we always going that far from Madison? Because we have plenty of very nice dairies to present to you out of this area too. So this year we will let you become familiar with the Lepples family. And they are about 30 miles, 35 miles northeast from here in Beaver Dam. And we have some presentation and some video, but the most important part of this is going to be you asking questions to the family about what and how they are running their dairy operation. A few little housekeeping things. First of all, I want to, let's say, thank you for being here, and I want to recognize a few people. Of course, the Lepples family in being here today and sharing their life with us. Then I want to be thankful also for Roger and Jeff from Central Ag Supply. Maybe the two of you can stand up, Roger, Jeff. They are with Central Ag Supply out of Juneau, and they are the Lely Center dealer who service the Lepples family with their robots. So they do an excellent job in making that work, right? Then please, we recognize that sometimes you have these calls which are important. Feel welcome to take them, but be silent and walk out of the room so that we can, let's say, keep some focus here. And of course, we are very honored to, let's say, let you get to know this family, because the way they do their operation, the way they have their farm set up with the whole family, it's great to see how a family is working on their future with all these generations. And I think it's a kind of a prime example what we think, let's say, a dairy farm should be like in the coming years. There's still a few chairs up front here as well, so if you want to sit down, that's perfectly fine. Then, why did we ask the Lepples family to, let's say, be on the podium today and share their experiences and their life with us? First of all, they are experienced robot users. They started milking in robots about 3 years ago. So they have the A3 Next robots. So it's not somebody who just stepped into robotic milking last year. It is somebody, the whole family, who have 3 years of experience to share with you. So it's not something like, hey, look us doing something new. It is like, hey, we are this family and we have been doing this for a couple of years now. They have proven an increased milk production. They have proven to be successful with robotic milking. And they have a very practical barn design. You see a lot of robot dairies where there is a lot of whistles and bells and gates and whatever it is to make things work. And I think they are the prime example of showing you that it works in just a very practical, simple design. They have a focus on the cows. The cows is the most important part of their production. So they want to do whatever is good and best for the cows. And if we do whatever is good and best for the cows, then they will probably give us a lot of milk as well, right? And it's I would say, a prime example of an American family farm. You will recognize that I have this strange accent. I'm originally Dutch. The good thing about it is that I can't speak fast because I have to think before I say something. So, anyways, I think they are a prime example of how you see US dairy farms with generation upon generation doing this dairy operation. So I think that is enough from me about the introduction to this virtual tour. It is all about them. So I would like you to meet the family. And I would like to start with Joel, Leppel, and Jean, the prime generation on the farm now, right? And then I will let Joel do the introduction of the rest of the family. Joel?
Can you all hear me back there? I'm just trying to, as Ben had said, to be ourselves. We've been on our farm, I think if I can do the math fast and quick, like 82 years. I should say my grandfather and father migrated to our farm from the east at that time. Been asked the question several times, how far east? Vermont, New York, whatever. No, at that time it was 8 miles from the east side of Beaver Dam to the south side. But my dad tends to always told me he remembers vividly on October 1 of 1936 being put in a old retired milk wagon with an old black horse. His cart was filled with the household goods, his older brother driving another team of horses, and the grandfather with an old truck moving 21 cows, whatever equipment was in that day, 8 miles for about 5 days in a row to move us to our farm. At that time, the farm was 200 acres. Now we are about 530 acres, about 300 tillable roughly, some pasture land, the rest deer hunting, turkey hunting, what have you. But I was the active third generation on the farm. My dad and I farmed side by side for probably 40-some years. I have 2 sons, Brent and Craig, who are pretty much the bulwark of the farm today. I'm still there. I feed calves, do tractor work, help try to keep them straight, but they are the new generation of being who they are and what we're doing. I'd like to introduce my wife, Jean.
You guys want to join your dad and the people can have some face?
Been my
we have them on the picture.
Partner in my life for 42 years plus. Brent on the end, the oldest son. Craig, next one. Daughter is Christine Lindner, her husband Russell. She was involved at the farm a lot all through her growing up days in high school. She was Wisconsin's 63rd Allison Dairyland. Her husband Russ is an over-the-road technician for Mid-State Equipment today on farm stuff, so we're all pretty related to ag. I have 2 daughter-in-laws that are home at their jobs, picking up grandkids from school, which I affectionately call the G5s, because they will be the Generation 5s. And being 3 years into the robots already, the 2 older boys were 4. They now can go into the robot room, push buttons, and do stuff that I still have a hard time keeping up with as far as doing. But it's amazing how they do it, can accomplish it, do stuff, involvement with it. One little small story, the oldest boy was in preschool at that time when it was being built, and then moved into it the first year, and he would go to school with show and tell with new technology. And Beaver Dam should be a rural community, but not as much as one would think. He'd go to school, talk about the TMR mixer and show and tell, the manure tanker, the robots, each one is milking, the feed pusher, the alley scrapers, and his teachers, who knew a little or nothing about farming at that time, thought, what is this little boy doing? I mean, can we believe it or not? So we'd pick him up from school. They would ask his mother, myself, the grandma, is this stuff what he's saying true? I mean, when he went show and tell, he took a toy TMR mixer to school and showed them. Why is it for? Things like that he did. So when Central Ag and Lely held an open house at our farm in April of the first year, and we were 6 months into the operation, shortly thereafter his school tour come, and the teachers, they had not the foggiest idea what he all said was what it was. They just couldn't. That is a farm today. Yeah, that's what it is. So Okay, I guess that's pretty much our history of what we're doing. Later on after the film, I guess it is, Ben, then we'll have some more questions
Yep.
and answers.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
I think we covered most of this information. You want to say something about this, Joel, with the number of cows you have, the breed, and some of the
Well,
results?
The herd now numbers 130. I guess we're going to go up to about the 140 mark. Number of livestock around the place that we...
Yeah, it's still working. Yeah, don't worry.
The heifer herd, has grown because of more cows. Pretty much what you see on the milking day and that stuff, I guess is okay, but you should be asking Craig those questions. He's the herdsman more so, and the other guy is a definite picky feeder and daily works with the machinery, and we all can do what the other one has to do, but all three of us kind of have our expertise fields.
Right.
And after 40 some years, I still do the AI work on our farm and do calf operation, but those guys are the managers of the herd and
Right.
the
So
crop
everybody
land.
is contributing according
Everybody
to his
puts
talents.
into it.
Yeah. You want to say something about the tours you host and about the acres you grow?
Well, we farm roughly close to 300 acres with tillable, a lot of, say, 100 acres of hay, 100 acres, 120, 30 acres of corn, some soybeans, new seedings, do graze the dry cow herd and the bred heifer herd, and the other heifers a little more on some pasture land. Pretty much what it is, and just buy a lot of some byproducts for the grain ration. Try to, I don't know, it's like Christine said when she was Alice, you almost have to tell some of the media people what questions to ask that are pertinent to ag, because many of them are 4 or 5 generations removed from anything with agriculture or plain and simple farming.
Right.
I would think bi-weekly there's somebody there looking at the operation, whether it be distant relation, friends, and many tours have come there. We're kind of glad to show what we have and not to be on the basis of boasting about it, but it is the new world today, and I wouldn't go back to anything else or any other way. And one little thing, maybe I shouldn't be saying here, but I'm going to say it here. Roger, Jeff, Central Ag, stand up there a second. Those two fellas have been super when we started. Roger and I go back 22 years to a Wings meeting, stuff like that. We didn't know what to talk about, all the sportsmen. We sat in the corner with a pitcher of beer, eating food, so we were happy. But we worked with them guys for, I don't know, as long as you're in business. And probably the last while in a world that maybe him and I thought of little as 10, 12 years ago would never be.
Right.
Anything else, Ben?
As always, partnership and working together brings the
Exactly,
results,
right.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's time for a little video, and then we can get into the question about why robotics as well. So, if things work out okay, and if Tori instructed me right, then I should get a mouse here. And then this should do the trick.
My name is Joel Lepples. I farm with my family at Ridge Road, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, and Dodge County. My wife, Jean, oldest son, Brent, his 2 children, Mackenzie, Ethan, son, Craig, his 2 sons, Coy, and Caden. I have been on this farm in my entire life, actively involved with all aspects of the farm. The farm itself started in 1936, October 1 of that year. My family migrated to this site from 8 miles away. Since then on, the farm originally started at 200 acres. Over the years, we've added up to maybe a little over 500 now. The second main farm, as we call it, where 100 and so of heifers and young stock for the lay operation is housed and kept, and one of my sons and his family live on that farm. We use 2 lay astronaut A3s for milking, a Juno feed pusher, and 2 Luna brushes. The cows dearly love those brushes.
The first few days of getting the cows in the robots was a little bit of a struggle. It was a push, but the dealer helped by really the first 2-3 weeks. Probably better than half were going in on their own. Since we started with the robotic milking, our herd has definitely gotten calmer. They seem more friendlier, even a little bit pestier, I'd say, out in the barn when you're doing the basic chores. Our average milking per day is 2.8 to 3 times a day.
My first thought was it's pretty far out, it's not going to work. But the more you tour, the more you look, boy, we could be like them people. We were impressed every time we went to a lady farm, how it was, how it is. With the robot 3 times a day milking, how contentment is overwhelming, how quiet and peaceful they are. I just can't get over that compared to what I would call the old days. I am the 3rd generation on the farm, and my sons are 4th, and I affectionately call the 4 grandkids the G5s are next to mine.
Since we went to the robotic milking, the production went from 62 to 65, basically to 78 to 80 is a strong average usually. And the real benefit of the robots, what we've seen is pretty much we try to free up our evenings. Usually an average day by 5:30 at night, we'll be home eating supper, or going to the baseball games that the kids are in, that kind of thing. It definitely opens up your evenings. Recently I started using the in-herd. I guess the apps I've been using right now is the Farm Beats, which just basically checks up production and it's like the dashboard on the T4C. It shows all that stuff. Also the individual cow, so I can look a cow up individually to see when she last got milked or if she's got other issues going on with her. And also the Today, which is a good one because that you can access your collect cows list and your udder health list or any other attentions that need to be brought to you.
For the convenience of the robotic milking versus parlor people, ourselves being there, probably kind of a no-brainer to go with the robotic milking.
This is the T4C program. What we use it for is, one of many things, but for instance, if I come out in the morning or evening to do the fetch cow list, we can go to the collect cows, which will tell me the latest, the cows that are out the longest that need to get milked. The milking other health list is also another good one because that will show you any cow that's really not feeling good for the day, whether it's in her udder or just if she's way down in poundage for that day. And it, like I said, you can see it on the computer, and then it lets you go out to the barn to find the problem and look closer at it.
something that was going to push when it was programmed to push, and that's what was nice with the Juno. You can program it every other hour, every hour, 3 times a day, however you want to program it. The more you can push, the more the cows are going to eat. The more they're going to eat, the more they're going to melt. So it was kind of a win-win all the way around. You're in the fields, you're doing field work, and you ask, well, nobody had to ask the question who stopped and went and pushed feed in at noon or at 3 or I guess even worse yet, who was the guy that was going to go out there at 10 or 11 at night and push it up one more time so they had feed all night long. So that the Juno has just been a real benefit to the whole operation. All of a sudden they noticed right away that hey, when this thing is beeping and moving along, all of a sudden the feed gets pushed in and we can dig back in. Instead of trying to fight it and not do it, just accept it and take advantage of it, because it does make life easier and simpler.
Thank you, Tori and Bolana, for putting this video together. It's a nice, very nice representation of what the farm is about, right? Before opening up the questions to everybody in the room, because we want your questions to be answered, I want to ask 2 questions to you folks. First of all, why did you go into robotic milking? Why did you go into, let's say, using a Juno and robots instead of picking, let's say, conventional milking systems or conventional, and maybe you want to, as a family, stand here and then answer questions. That makes it a little easier to see the faces to the people in the room as well.
Well, I guess the real reason why we went into it was overall the flexibility. Like you say, we both got small kids that were starting to get involved in sports and school activities, and at the end of the day, what time are all school activities? Between 5 and 7 at night. Well, that's when you should be in the barn milking. So that's what really tripped us about going that way. Same with push and feed. You know, it was who was going to stop and do that when we were busy in the fields. We don't have to worry about it. It's done.
Right. I heard the word flexibility a lot when I talked with you and Tori as well. So I think that is one of the key elements of that, right, Greg?
Right.
Other question I have for you, and it's basically to trickle your mind as well, because after this question, I'm going to ask you to come up with questions, right? So be ready for it. So one of the questions I have, Greg, or whoever wants to answer it, is that in your barn layout is very practical, and it does not have any, let's say, fancy gates in, let's say, separating cows or high need pens or that kind of things. So in your situation, how do you handle your cows if you have to breed them or if you have to find them for dry over, that kind of things?
Yeah, what we did do is on each end of the barn, we did put a small pen on with a headlock in. So if we got to do footwork, breed them, or DA surgery for whatever reason, we got the option to lock them and control them. In the meantime, if you bring a cow up too early, maybe she's unstable with milk fever, possibility that you wouldn't trust her overnight, well, you put her in there and at least she knows she's going to be on sand and not get took up by the manure scraper.
Right, thank you. Now I'm going to give you this one because it's going to be easier for me to go with the microphone in the room. And then who wants to be first? Who has a question? And please use the microphone. That makes it a little easier for everybody else to hear your question as well.
What's the average age of your cows that you're milking? And did you find that they last longer doing this? And what age do you breed your heifers to calve?
As far as calving, our calving age of heifers is usually at 2 years of age is when we try to calve them in. The overall age of the cows were probably a fairly young herd. They're probably 3.5 to 4 year olds. When we started, we did buy about 35 to 40 head of springing heifers, our cows that were in lactation.
Could you guys hear it in the back, or is it hard? It's a little quiet. Can we push it up a little bit? Thank you.
As far as the longevity of the cows, I definitely think the whole housing, the waterbed mattresses that we got, the whole cow comfort in mind has helped them, you know, to lay around, do what they want, not get swollen hocks, things like that we seen out of the old barn that, yeah, you shook a slab of straw down, but usually at the end of winter you'd have quite a few cows with swollen hocks and things like that. So that definitely the cows have lasted good, but we're also working them quite a bit harder than we ever have before.
And in addition to that, I want to say that there's a lot of questions always asked about the longevity of cows in a robot herd. And we know from experience in Europe, particularly where we started with robotic milking 15, 20 years ago, that the longevity gets longer and better, that the lifetime production of cows is higher. But it's not only the robot, it's the whole circumstances of, let's say, the cows doing whatever they want, that they have good comfort, and in that way they, let's say, maintain production on a longer term. Who's next?
Yes, what was the size of your operation, and how did your setup work before you went to the robotic milking, and what were some of the transitions that you did to switch over?
We basically milked in a 54 stall barn. We had a herd of 70 cows, 75. I guess one of the things that we did is when we were under construction phase, we really worked hard on getting the building done first to try to get the cows to house up there before they even started milking. So they got used to the stalls, used to going through the headlocks to eat, and just get familiar with the building. And I really think that did help too in the transition.
Right. In addition to that, we think it's very important for farmers and cows to prepare themselves for robotic milking. So it is important that in an early stage, when you get into robotic milking, that you prepare yourself, that you visit other dairies, that you pick up the experiences from families like the Lepples, how they did their things and how they prepare their cows and their own people in working on a robot barn. So.
I'm glad to be here from India, along with my seniors, Dr. Ram Reddy, Mr. Jaypal Reddy. Also, I'm glad to know about the farm you're maintaining. And I want to know how profitable your dairy farm is. And also, the feeding pattern of your dairy cows each day.
Did you catch that, Greg?
How how you feed your cows on a daily basis, and we are very much interested to visit your farm physically. Will you allow?
Okay. So he asked what the profitability is of the farm, and he asked what kind of feed ration do you have, and how, let's say, you combine it with robotic milking.
I'll answer that the feed portion there first. First of all, we've, like anything else, we kind of got a mixer that was big enough that we could mix one batch a day, and maybe at times it's gotten a little bit too hot, but at the end of the day, everything seems like they lick it up, it's gone. I think the other thing that really helped out with trying to get away with just once a day feeding, the Juno does a good job of pushing the feed up like pretty tight to the curb there, so it keeps the feed pretty tight all day. So when they do have to mill around through it, it just keeps it pretty cool. I've we've had like a 90-degree day, and you'll kind of look at the feed and feel it, and it's like, oh, it's still cool yet. And so I think, that way it's worked out for us kind of on a deal, just sit there and, grind 1,000 pounds of corn out once a day, not split it in half and like anything else. Then by later in the day, maybe we're in the field or we're doing something else. So it's kind of, it's something that we've gotten a routine, get done in the morning, and let the Juno pretty much go from there.
Can you tell something more about what is in the feed ration?
The feed ration pretty much consists of a couple pounds of dry grass most of the time. Sometimes we'll substitute that with some rye grass. There's roughly 8 to 10 pounds of high moisture corn, 3.5 pounds of protein mix that goes in there, and it's roughly like a 50-50 haylage to corn silage ratio. And then everybody gets the same feed in the feed bunk. The only place things change is once in the robot, where they get their pellet, kind of their treat pellet, if you want to call it that. The high-end cows will be getting up to 16, 18 pounds, like anything else. The ones that are close to dry off and so forth, they're down to half of that a day or whatever. And it's all kind of rationed out how much they get per visit to that robot. That takes care of all that on that end of it.
Yeah. It is, for those of you who are not so familiar with robotic milking, the key success factor for getting cows go to the robot themselves, and that's what you want, is the feed ration. If you feed the cows in the feed bunk all they need for the day, then they won't go in the robot. So it is key to change your feed ration in such a way that the cows are attracted to the robot by a little reward they get in the shape of pellets or a nice palatable, let's say, feed stuff. That gets them to the robot. So it's very important, and I think the feed ration is the number one success factor if you want to get cows into the robot themselves. You maybe also want to say something about the profitability of the farm since you got into the robots.
I guess the profitability would be a iffy, touchy question. I'll touch on it a little bit. How am I going to say? I'd rather go one-on-one with something like that. But as far as the investment we made, when we started with this brainstorm 4+ years ago, I actually wanted to quit dairy. I'd done it all my life, loved it, liked it, but I had had it. These two fellas were working with me for 10, 11 years. I felt it was time. They have to make the decisions, do this, do that more. They worked hard, they did hard, they're growing with it well. I'm very proud of them. All I can say is we had the financial institution that we had for 30 years wouldn't go along with our idea. It's too small, too big of money, and we were told by a consultant that it's going to happen. When it's time to swing the bat, they're going to walk away from the plate, and they did. But that being said, we were fishing around for financing from local ag banks, and by chance today I met one of our loan officers on the grounds, and he was just here, I don't think for any reason, just to see. And so we were talking about it, and he said, "Did you ever think?" No, I said, "I didn't." He said, "We were sure it had to fly, but someone had to start it first." He said, "We weren't going to let you go into the operation 1 foot at a time." And since then, they, one not far from us, and 2 further north, have built identical operations to us, with many people coming through, larger, different, smaller, but done it. But I guess in our profitability, I can say all payments are made. We've increased our lifestyle quite a bit more. Takes a little more money to live a little more nicer. things like that, as far as tickets for this, tickets to that. We've updated our equipment line without no extra. We were, like Craig had said before, milking 70, 75 cows, raising Holstein steers, doing a little cash cropping. But when they hit me with the idea of robots, gee, I thought, wouldn't a simple parlor be a little simpler, easier? Well, didn't turn out that way. Long story short of it is, we got the robots, and if I was full-time dairying myself, you'd have to be 20 years younger. It's the only way to go as far as I'm concerned, but still a lot of work, a lot of paying attention. But believe me, when you don't have to milk the cows, but pay attention with them, it's, I don't know, the slogan of, I don't want to blow Laylee's hat off her head, but live life, Laylee, well, it is true. It does help.
Yeah. We didn't come up with that slogan ourselves, Joe. No. Anybody else?
Thanks for the video and presentation. It's been really great to see this. But I was also wondering, so I've known a couple stories about robots that actually didn't work out, and the reasons that I usually hear for that is about herd management. So I was wondering if you schedule time into your day to walk around, look at cows, how you deal with the things that robots may not catch that somebody who's milking each cow each day might catch.
The robot catches everything. You can't compare to what that thing can test for and catch before it is really that far gone. It's incredible what it'll sense before you can really see it happening. That's pretty much the truth. If you pay attention to your T4C or on your phone on your in-herd, you're going to see you got a cow sick, you're going to see it, you better go look at it because it's probably sick. It's all about, you got to manage it. Like I say, the first thing I do in the morning when I get up is basically, well, I guess check if anybody calved, so there's no calving problem, but the next thing is I'm going on the computer to see what all is going on out in that barn.
So how much time do you spend a day browsing through all that data and getting that information for you?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Right. Did you have a smartphone or email before you got into robots?
No, we actually, before we got into this robot milking, I think I was on the internet about twice. So don't let the internet technology scare you, because I had absolutely no experience with it, and like I say, I'm loving it now.
Yeah, right.
How much time a day do you spend managing the cows or rounding, fetching cows? And in the video, it looked like there was possibility that there was room for cows on the other side of the barn, that you had half the barn built. The feed alley was glazed on the other side looked like for feeding cows. Was that for future expansion?
Yeah, the other side of the barn is basically set up for, let's move those posts and put the other half of the roof on and turn the 3-row barn into a 6-row barn with 2 more robots, or just maybe 1 more robot on the other side. So yeah, we did set ourselves up for future expansion. As far as chore work in the barn, probably in the morning I spend 2.5 hours up there. That's fetching the cows, cleaning the stalls, and probably 20-25 minutes cleaning the robots up, checking ropes, checking hoses, just the daily maintenance things. Then the evenings, if things go right, usually like right now we're down to 6 to 5 fetch cows. I can be out of there in about an hour.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Did you notice an increase, a decrease, or the same being spent on your hot water costs and your electricity costs once you put in the robots?
Probably really stayed the same, because every motor up in that new barn is either a 1 or 2 horse motor, where before you were having a 15 horse motor, not running as much, but just took that much more. So the electricity bill, it may went up a little bit, but for what you're doing now, it hardly changed, or not much different at all.
Yeah, there is some research out there I know for sure from Iowa State, which compared, let's say, the energy consumption of conventional systems and robot systems. So you'll find some more information about that from them. And there is lots more research from, let's say, Europe about that. The difficult thing with comparing before after is that you never have a situation which is exactly the same and just replace the parlor for a robot. That is a big challenge in making these kind of comparisons. But you can imagine that the motor we use for the vacuum pump doesn't have to be that big. And so all these components which are smaller makes, let's say, logically for being more efficient, using that energy more stable throughout the day than having a peak in consumption of power in the morning and in the afternoon. Same if you think about the feed pusher. That is a thing which runs on a battery, is charged several times a day. So also there you have a very flat use of energy and you don't need how big of a skid steer or that kind of equipment to push the feed up. So I hope that helps in answering this question. Thank you.
I'm curious as to how the whole procedure works with the cows going into the parlor to get milk. Well, not the parlor, that's the wrong word, right? Into their spot to get milk. And is it just their whim and wish that decides when they go in to get milked? And what's to stop them from saying, hey, I like this treat that I'm getting, so I'll just visit this place many times a day?
It's an excellent question.
And that's what happens. You know, there's some of them that do like that treat that come in 4, 5, 6 times a day. Only as soon as they walk in, the exit gate.
Go ahead.
The exit gate opens up as soon as they walk in. The computer knows that they've already just milked recently enough so they can move on. And as far as getting in there, like I say, the lanes are there that they can walk in on their own. And the thing what makes them walk in is that pellet. You need a pellet that they gotta crave and want.
If you look around and if you look in a robot barn, then we want to see close to 3 milkings per cow per day, depending on milk production. If you have a 100-pound herd, you want to see more visits than if you have a 70-pound herd. So with that, we also want to see at least 1 refusal per cow per day. And a refusal is a cow walking into the robot and being too early to be milked. Because that 1 refusal, which only takes a couple of seconds, is an indication that these cows want to go and are milked in time. And we want to catch them whenever they have their udder or the bucket or whatever it is filled with milk, right? We want to make sure that we empty their udder before they get saturated. So.
What's in that pellet?
That's an excellent question.
You gotta ask the guy sitting 2 chairs down from you. He's our nutritionist, who happens to be here.
Who's there? Can you tell us your secret?
It really isn't a secret per se. As they said, they're not feeding huge amounts of high moisture corn. The key is the energy. You gotta limit the energy at the bunk, and then you allow the cow to want to come to the robot. And you put energy at the robot, and they'll come. I manipulate 3 or 4 different starch sources. And then I also have some bypass protein in there as well. But it's all about creating the aroma as well as something that the cow naturally wants. And so I tell guys when they ask me that question, I say, I work with other robot herds, and I will say it this way, none of the robot pellets are the same. I actually manipulate everyone differently because of the ratios of corn silage to haylage they have on farm as well as what their other ingredients they have on farm. So I'm convinced today that it's all about the blends of the energy side as well as the blends of the protein. So, what is it? Okay, what it is there's wheat in there. There's also corn in there. I actually use their own corn to make the pellet. There's also mids, wheat mids, and there is also bypass protein source called SurePro, And then there's also some canola meal in there. And there's also some, let's see, there's a flavor agent that I add to it. There is yeast culture in there. There's mineral in there. And there's also 2 different fat sources that I use.
I would like to add to that, because a lot of people think that you have to put something in there which is kind of the magic dust, right? Have something in there which cows like. And the most important thing about pellets is that they are hard. No dust, no fines, no stuff in there. Cows like a nice hard pellet. And then you can do something with flavoring. You can prevent in putting anything in there which cows do not like, but you won't attract them with just a flavor. It is palatable, and it is the good energy balance between the bunk and what's in the pellets.
Yeah, I was going to ask a little bit about the feed also, but wondered if you have to use a pellet. It sounds like, I mean, that answers part of my question, but the equipment is capable of handling a mix that you could do on the farm or not, or is it, I mean, you have to have the pellet in order to get the cow into the box. And the other part of it was wondering about your feed cost, you know, with that partial mixed ration versus a TMR or in your conventional operation that you came out of.
So it's 2 questions.
Part of the question about feeding, I do have a friend who has got a single lay operation, and his, I don't know what it is, the last 6 months I haven't seen him, but before that, his pellet ration, blank, so to speak, was high moisture shell corn blended with roasted beans only. Those 2 ingredients, and the rest he was putting through his feed bunk. It seemed to work for him. He bought some kind of a hog feeder blender to put above his robot that blended those 2 ingredients together when he would fill the hoppers for him, and it seemed to work for him. But I think the pellet, it smells good, rolls good, and boy, they like them. So.
And I think in addition to that, we have farms doing and trying different kind of things instead of pellets. And there are dairies out there who do that successfully. But it's kind of hard for us to estimate whether somebody is able to manage it, yes or no. So we are a big fan of pellets, because with pellets you cannot do much wrong except for mixing it wrong, right? I mean, if you have a good pellet, then it dispenses easy, it doesn't make dust, it doesn't make a mess in the robot. So especially around startup, we are almost adamant in saying, please start with pellets. And if you want to move in with some other products later on and you think you can manage it, then feel welcome to do so. But to start with, don't make it too complicated. And in addition to you want to say something about the feed cost, Craig, or?
I think it's what, 380 a ton?
Yeah.
Feed goes up, goes down.
You want to see the barn in uproar, just run out of pellets or let the motor not work. then you know, you see things get pretty wild up there.
Yeah, that's a good point. In addition to that, we did quite a bit of research and are still working on that, on feed cost per hundredweight on the robot dairies. And from nature, from let's say the first impression, you think, if I have to buy pellets, it's going to cost me, right? Yeah, and that was my thought process too. So when we start digging into that and we look at feed cost per hundredweight, we have the effect, because we feed cows individually in the robot, we can also feed these cows exactly according to their needs. So in principle, we prevent about 10% of energy waste, which you normally would have in a TMR. So that is one advantage, that we can feed these cows according to their lactation curve, and we can give them what they need, nothing more and nothing less. So what we see with the lactation curves of cows milked in the robot is that they usually peak higher and they maintain longer, because we can feed them individually. Now, if you calculate the feed cost per hundredweight, because we get more milk too, then if you look at conventional and robot dairies, there is not a lot of difference in there. And even surprising, and one of my colleagues, Mark Rose, is at the moment running a study, and we have data from 12 large dairies now. And if we look at the cost portion of the pellets, that is only maybe 20-25% of the whole ration. Most of the cost comes out of the starch in the feed bunk. So we were kind of surprised with that, and we are not done with this research yet. We want to know more to be able to give you better recommendations how to make that work. But I think in general, the feed cost is not going to be higher, especially if you set it off to the extra production gain you have.
You said earlier that robot milking was going on in Europe for many years already. Can you tell me which countries in particular this is happening in the most?
It started off in the Netherlands in about 22 years ago, and you will see robots now around the world, mainly in the Western European countries. So let's say the Netherlands, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, the UK, but also in Spain, Italy. And from there it is basically spreading over the world. So we started in the US and Canada about 12 years ago. You see robots in Russia, in Australia, in New Zealand, Ireland. So we shipped more than 20,000 robots around the globe in the last 20 years. So it is not something new. It is that with all the experience we build, we gradually start, let's say, getting into the North American market too.
I've actually been writing down my comments. I've actually got one comment and two questions. As far as the feed cost, the seminar that was just done, the Milking with Robots, part 2, they actually did cover the feed costs, and all of the seminars and virtual tours and everything, those are available a day or two later on the World Expo's website. So if you watch that seminar in a day or two, then that'll answer your question. But it was fairly equal. Quickly for you, and then probably not so quickly for you, did you mention how many robots you have on your farm?
We have two robots.
Two robots. I'm wondering for the nutritionist, for the pellets in particular, have you yet, or do you think you could work within an organic system?
You want to answer that one?
Sure. Why not? All right. Great question. The challenge gets to be in sourcing the ingredients. Okay. And as you guys have also heard, I'll explain it this way. The ingredients I use are designed to create a hard pellet. If you don't choose the right ingredients, you won't have a hard pellet. I have learned the hard way that if you try to use a pellet binder and you just pound a pile of pellet binder to it, it will not make a good pellet. So the key is picking the starch sources and picking the other ingredients that go along with it in order to do that. If you can source those ingredients in that respect, and it's certainly possible, you can definitely do it. But the challenge gets to be, and this is what I run into, my colleagues do some work as well with organics, is sourcing those ingredients, because it is a very tight regimen in order to get those ingredients, and then the process of being certified organic through your facility to do it is the next hurdle that gets to be. But if you can get through both of those, why not?
The lady is asking whether you are creating just repeating the question for the people in the back of the room. She's asking whether he's creating the pellets or whether an external, let's say, feed mill or so is creating them, or the farm itself.
Actually, I do all the formulations, And the negotiation I have with our pelleter is that they do not change the formula unless they hear from me.
Right.
So it's a locked formula, and I'm very strict on that one.
Yeah.
Because I do not like lease costs and things when I know it has an impact on the times that it's going to come, the cows are going to come to the robot. The pelleter has to be certified organic, and the ingredients have to be certified organic in order to do it. Yep.
In addition to that, I just want to say that of all the farms we have in North America, I guess that 1 out of 20 or so, I think we have about 20 or so organic farms around North America, in Canada and in the US. I'm supposed to wrap this up in 3 or 4 minutes or so, and I want to do some, let's say, some conclusions. Anybody having a very urgent question?
Yeah, other than convincing your father to switch over to robotic, what was, do you think, the biggest challenge you had going to robotic milking?
I'd say probably just time you add everything up at all costs, and you look where to save money, and you don't want to cheat yourself, but yet you don't want to have gold on your counter and plate the window edges with gold neither. It was just cost, where could you save, but you don't want to take away from the cow neither.
Right. Thank you. It was an excellent last question, I think, folks, and it ties back into what Joel said. It is nice to have a good life, and it is nice to have flexibility in your life, but if it doesn't generate the cash flow you need to live that life, then what are you doing it for, right? So I think this is a prime example of people who are doing a great job with all these generations in handling their farm and being successful with that, and still have a great life to live, right? So with that, I want to thank you all, including the ladies on the first row, for being and hosting this tour today. And I want to thank you for being here and listening to us, and especially to this family. If you have any more questions, I guess they will be around here or in the arena building. And if you want to talk some more, please look us up. And thank you for all your interest and your questions. And please give these guys a hand.